And we are live. Hello, how you doing? It is good to be back on the YouTube scene. Change of formula, change of things. Normally, I am the type of content creator who likes to set up my tripod and film videos at my own pace down here in my studio. But today, I have a very special guest with me. I have Mr. Benjamin Nowak, one of the best smallmouth anglers I've ever seen and had the opportunity to meet. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about planning ahead for the fishing season. We're going to discuss some fine points in fishing and the logistics that goes behind it. Maybe y'all learn something about me. Hopefully we all learn a bunch of stuff about Ben, and we're going to have a great time. So let's dive right into it here. I'm going to open up my notes. So Ben, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me on this lovely Wednesday night.
Thanks for having me, dude. If you guys see me look off to the side of the screen, I apologize. We got dad duties. I think that's just part of life. Dom and I were talking before we hopped on, and I think like that's what makes the YouTube thing so cool, right? Is like a lot of us aren't pros, right? Like a lot of us have real-time jobs and everything that goes along with it. So I appreciate you having me on, and yeah, we're hanging out and talking fishing. So what can get much better than that?
You're the man. I love and appreciate that. What's what is her name?
Caroline.
Caroline.
She is like 2.5 months old, so almost 3 months old.
Wow.
So baby.
Fantastic.
Then,
congratulations once again, dude. That's great.
Thanks.
That's just great. And how old is your oldest child?
Almost 2, like 20 months old. So yeah, 2 under 2, which is a little bit fun, but it's
2 toddlers keeping you busy, keeping you young. I absolutely love that.
It's fun, dude.
So Ben, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking? I'm 27.
Okay, yeah, I'm 30. So I turned 30 this year. Well, in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
But dude, it's been like crazy, right? Like everyone talks about 30 as this terribly old age or like huge milestone.
Yeah,
and at the same time, like I hit 30, and there were some things maybe I wish I would have accomplished, but at the same time, like 30, man, I still feel like I'm like 25. Like inside, I feel like I could go like I'm 25, 23. Yeah, it's great.
You got that fresh air in your lungs still. You know, you're ready to run up the mountain, do whatever you got to do.
I don't know about running anymore. It's more like a speed walk, but yeah, I feel good.
How long have you been fishing?
So that's a weird question, right? Because like I started fishing when I was young. And like I think as a lot of people do, especially when you fish with your family or your grandparents or whoever it might be, you get into it just fishing for like anything, right? Like you fish for bluegill or panfish, or you put like a worm on a bobber and just hope something bites. So I've been fishing forever, but like I really got into bass fishing at like 17. At 17, I saw Ike City Limits Fishing, and like
I didn't know that was a cool show.
It was a sweet show, right, dude? And like I didn't even know what a bass boat was. I'd never seen a bass boat, never heard of bass tournaments. All I knew was like you go fishing for fun. And so like I saw Ike, and that's kind of when I got into it and was like, for lack of a better term, like hooked on bass fishing. Like I just wanted to bass fish all of the time. And here's Caroline. She's a little bit. She might want to sit up, so she'll be sitting up in the screen with us. But
she's like, adorable.
Thanks, dude.
The first baby ever on my channel.
Yeah. You know at the bottom where you can put like made for kids or like not made for kids in your video upload? Yeah. Now you can say it's made for children.
I love that.
But no, dude, like I got really big into bass fishing at like 17 and have been hooked ever since. So that's just kind of the progression of it. But yeah, man, it's been a lot of fun. It's been crazy 12 years, and I feel like I've learned a lot. Oh, gracious. This is going to be one of those nights. I feel like I've learned a lot and I've come a long way. I'm going to step out for like 2 minutes. My wife just got home, and then, yeah, I will be right back.
You do your thing, brother. I got you. All right. For those of you who are still tuned in, our guest, Ben, just had to step out, hand off his child to his wife. Dad duties always come first on this channel. We love a good role model when it comes to parenting. We also love a good role model when it comes to fishing. But one is a lot more important than the other. If you ever have the chance to be a good father, very, very important. Here we go, in the man's bag.
I've been fishing like really serious bass fishing since like 17, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just been the progression. What about you? How long have you been fishing? Right, because you fish for everything. You fish for like everything.
I do fish for a lot of different everything, but the bass are my number one. You know, that's my wheelhouse. I started fishing a lot more. So I grew up on a lake, still live out here. And like you were saying, when you were younger, it starts out catching anything. And I remember sitting at the end of the dock catching bluegills with, pieces of white bread, rolled into these little balls and putting them on hooks.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing bass swim by, and they're not going to eat a little piece of bread like that, but I'd always wanted to catch a big fish like that. And I'd say I was in 7th grade, so I might have been 12 or 13 when I caught my first largemouth. And there's actually a funny story behind it. I had a spinning reel, and I got it all sorts of messed up. And my dad was in the back of the boat, and he was super grumpy over how I rat nested it really, really badly. And, he handed me his pole, and, like, I'm awkward. I'm in the 7th grade. Like, I'm just trying to do something. And it's that point in time in a young man's life where you're going through a lot, and you don't think you're good at a whole lot of stuff. And my dad's complaining and griping about, having to fix this spinning reel. And I've got his, closed face. He doesn't fish a ton. He had this older closed face reel, and it's like a pistol grip Garcia rod. Yeah. I just remember being at the main point on the lake I live on, just looking down in the water and like 8 or 9 feet of water, jigging this ribbon tail up, and I'd see it swim like that, and all of a sudden it disappeared. And I remember thinking, uh-oh. And like I swung back on it, and it was about 18 inches, but that was the first bass I've ever caught in my life. It was a nice, September largemouth, but there was also like party boaters out there kind of cruising around, and they saw all of it happen. And I just remember thinking, whoa, I want to do this all of the time.
Yeah. So are you like, did that like ignite a passion of just fishing? Like, what is your passion? Is it fishing, or is it tournament scene? Like, what is that to you?
It's just fishing. I'd like to get more into the tournament stuff when I'm ready for it. It's just the cost and the logistics and how a lot of things work out. And I don't have, I could kayak. I could do a kayak tournament if I look more into it. That's, a different kind of background. Not too long after, like, I really started getting into fishing, I got this Rapala DVD from the Gander Mountain.
Yes, I have seen it. Yep.
This was game changing to me. Just the only thing I really wanted to do was throw crankbaits, and I was like 13, and a lot of the fellows in my area, they were throwing wacky rigs, and they were throwing like inline MEP spinners, and I was always a little bit different. I was throwing the square bills, and I was playing with other things. Like, I started off power fishing when I was like 13 and 14, and then as I got older, I slowly broke it down, and which I think is kind of unique because I don't think a lot of fishermen do that. They start fishing slow. You agree with me on that?
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, I mean, like, unless you're impacted by a mentor, right? Like, unless you have a mentor that teaches you otherwise, like, I think by nature, it's more natural almost to fish slowly than it is to just start power fishing.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree there. And did you have a mentor growing up when it came to fishing that would go out with you?
When I fished for a couple of years, like, not really knowing what I was doing, right? Like, when I got into bass fishing, I realized that there were tournaments, right? But I didn't know levels. I didn't know tiers of tournaments. So I read Ike's book, and I jumped into it.
It's a great book.
Phenomenal. Like, one of the, like, life-changing as far as fishing goes. Well, but I read his book, and I jumped into an EverStart event, which back in the day, that's like the Toyota series now.
Yeah.
That's semi-pro as a co-angler. And I get out there. One, I've never been in a bass boat. I didn't really know what I was doing. Didn't really have gear. And, like, the guy I drew on day one was Brandon Coulter, who's now fishing the BPT.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, so we get out there, and, like, I'd never caught a smallmouth. Like, I had no idea, right? So we get out there. We end up catching some fish. He whoops my butt just because, man, he's that good. Anyways, I still think he whooped my butt. And eye-opening, right? Well, then I came back. I bought a bass boat. I bought a old Procraft, like I think it was 1990. I think it was 98 Procraft with the 96 Merc Mariner. Broke down like all the time. My mentor was Andy Meyer, who lives around here, and he's just a phenomenal jig fisherman, like one of the best jig fishermen in the area. So that was the bait that I threw. Like I would go to the lake with like a Meyer bag full of like 6 or 7 jigs and some Berkeley chigger craws. And that's all I would have. Like I didn't have anything else. Dude, it's phenomenal, right? But like that's how I learned, because that's all, like he threw that a bunch, but that's basically all I would throw. Like I didn't really use anything else, didn't really have any other techniques in the arsenal other than like some baits that I sort of could throw. So that's how I learned, was like Andy taught me everything that I knew until I got in the Phoenix, and then I started learning. So
that's fantastic. Yeah, I remember picking up a pack of the chigger craws maybe like 14 years ago from Walmart. They were the Crazy Legs chigger craw.
Yeah,
and
which they just brought back finally.
Yeah, I'm excited to play with the Maxcent line of the chigger craws. They're gonna be really, really, really good. I'm geeked for that. I remember spending many days growing up, living on the lake, just walking around to different properties like I had permission to like shore fish from.
Yeah.
And when you're younger, you're like, hey, if I catch one bass this week, I'm going to be happy. And it's crazy to think about how we used to justify it when we were younger, just throwing anything anywhere, like stand in the same spot and just throw one bait and hope something happens.
Hours, dude, like hours.
And now, we've spent so much time and effort honing in our skills. It's like clockwork. Like last October, I could pick out stretches of the lake and know where, or have a good idea where the fish were going to bite at least. It was really, really cool.
Isn't that crazy? Like, to me, that's one of the coolest things about fishing, right? That other sports, they don't really have. You're competing against like another living animal, like a creature that you can't see, you can't talk to, and you can't interact with outside of catching them. And like our ability to put this puzzle together on a consistent basis. Like when you start fishing, I remember I would fish for my grandparents' bank. They had a cottage up on Sugar Springs, and I would walk like this, maybe 50-foot stretch, and just cast all day long with a little caney worm on a spinning rod. And if I caught one fish that day, it was like a phenomenal day. But it's crazy where we've come, right? Like now we understand patterns, and we understand how to move around the lake and how to, target fish with different lures. It's insane.
You get that feeling where, you open the door, you step outside, you take a deep breath, and you're like, oh yeah, they're definitely going to bite the jig today.
Yeah, exactly.
It's fantastic. How long have you been doing the YouTube game?
I started, like the first video I uploaded, I think was in 2012 or 2011. And back then, so when I started my YouTube channel, it was me singing. It was me playing guitar and singing.
Oh, rock on. So you play electric guitar or acoustic guitar?
No, I thought I could play the acoustic guitar. Now, like thinking I could play the acoustic is like a long stretch of the word thinking I could, like playing it. Like I couldn't. I could like strum a couple chords and like sing along.
Were you that guy who always brought the guitar to like the bonfire to try to impress the ladies?
No, I wasn't that good. I wasn't that good. I would like put it out on YouTube and pray that like a girl would see it or something stupid.
I love that. I love
like
that.
The first 2 years was just me singing on YouTube and me putting up like some lacrosse videos. And then like the first fishing video, I think was in 2013. And it was like those hype videos. Like I think I used Sail with one, and I used Radioactive.
Oh yeah, Getting Down.
Oh yeah,
I love that.
But like
great.
For real fishing YouTube was like 2015 or 2016. And that's when I started posting.
And you've recently surpassed a quaint milestone. 28,000 subscribers on YouTube. That's quite the mark, dude. Congratulations.
It's crazy, man. It's insane to see the progression again of the YouTube channel and kind of where things are going and how I want the channel to grow. And I have some hopefully good plans for 2022 that we'll put into place, but we'll see.
The only place we're going is up, and maybe that'll take us to the moon, man.
Heck yeah, to the moon.
So I originally was anti fishing YouTuber for a long time, just probably because I didn't have the resources to get it off the ground. I didn't have a GoPro. I didn't know how to use like the computer software to edit. But my background before this was writing for outdoor magazines and writing for newspapers.
I had no clue.
Yeah, there was Hooks and Bullets magazine, there was Woods and Water, and then there's Outdoor News. So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
When did you start that?
2014 or 2013. I was 18 or 19, somewhere in there.
That's cool. And then how'd you get into the YouTube thing?
Okay, so this was my freshman year at university. I was trying to do anything but study. And I had this really old iPad mini, and I'm just thinking, well, if you're going to do something, you better as well jump into it. The first one isn't going to be great. So I'm just going to prop up my iPad mini and talk about Texas rigging worms in my dorm room. And, you know, you put something up there, you knock the kinks out of it, you know, you finally tune it. Before you know it, you know, people are giving you advice on what software you're using. I got a GoPro, and you know, things are working pretty well for it. At least I'm coming up on 4,000 subscribers. So
yeah, I know, dude. I was looking at that, and like, it's not like a small channel. Like, your channel is growing so much. I think the biggest piece of advice I give to anyone that's doing YouTube, right, is like, and this is even to myself, like, just post. Because this idea of perfection gets to me all the time. Like, I am a perfectionist, right? Like,
yes.
I want to do these really perfect videos, you know, come up with the perfect thumbnail, the perfect title, like, go and catch the most fish and like share the best information. But at the end of the day, like, people can relate to the journey more than they can actually going out and like having a perfect day or telling the perfect story. Like, it's way more relatable and way more easily relatable when you get out there and you just fish. You just know you.
And like you said on Instagram, I believe a week or two ago, you know, everybody sucks until they don't. Yeah. So I'm thinking like, shoot, he said that, and you know, I'm just gonna go for it and do it the best I can, put it together, not beat myself up for it, and play around with it.
Well, like, I look back at my very first video. I don't even know if it's still up. My very first fishing video. I'm pretty sure it was an unboxing of me talking about some 6 cents baits. And dude, I'm not exaggerating if it might have been, hi guys, this is Ben Nowak. We're going to be talking about 6 cents baits. The entire video.
Yeah.
No change in tone, no change in volume. It was all just like monotone, like fearing for my life that someone was going to say one negative thing about me, right?
Yeah.
And you progress, what, 6-7 years later down the road, and now it's just all about like sharing yourself and put out content until you feel comfortable.
Yeah, you've got the face for, and you know, the comfort level of just having the camera on and talking to it. Like, you're not even thinking about it, because the more you think about it, there have been so many instances where I was talking and I say something wrong, or I'm thinking to myself as I'm talking, hey, don't say anything wrong, don't say anything dumb. And then before I know it, I haven't said anything for like 8 seconds. And I'm like, I got to film this clip over again.
Yeah. Or you make one tiny mistake, right? Like, let's say you're 3 minutes into a video and you make one tiny mistake of how things maybe should have played out in your mind. Well, then you cut that clip and now you delete it, and now you have to redo the whole thing. And like, by doing this, becomes less and less natural versus letting yourself, you know, make mistakes and maybe cutting it out in post-production or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But just putting yourself out there and like realizing literally everyone sucks until they don't, right? Like, go back and watch Flair's video, go back and watch Milliken's videos, and anyone that you look up to in the industry, right? Like, every single person, I promise you, if you found Zona's first videos, they were not good. There's no chance they were good.
Yeah.
So
it takes a lot of practice and effort and dedication, and you know, you definitely have that, and I definitely have that as well, and that's why we're here doing what we do. So when you were younger and you were getting more into bass fishing, you were definitely of that era where you'd wake up on a Saturday morning and watch the Bassmaster Elites on ESPN2? No?
No, man. Like, even at 17, 18 years old, I was so involved with so many other things, whether it was college lacrosse or, you know, working on college stuff. And yes, I was obsessed with it. Like, I was obsessed with actually bass fishing. But, like, I wasn't driven to the same point that I am now. Like until
Okay.
I was probably 23 years old, I would say, I was driven to a different level, right? I fished in college. I thought I was a lot better than I was, but I was never like as invested. I didn't get to the lake as much as I maybe should. I didn't prioritize it. I didn't save, my money and drive down to Wixom, which is 15 minutes away. I would spend it on whatever college kids spend their money on.
Yeah.
and and when I got to 23, I realized I had a boat. I like to fish. I really love to fish. And that's when I basically started putting in the time being on the water.
So now you played lacrosse in college?
Yeah, so I played hockey basically I played hockey like my entire life. Right?
Okay.
And I had this crazy mindset that I was going to play professional hockey.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if anyone's met me, they know I'm about 5'5", 5'6" maybe on a good day.
Mm-hmm.
And like you don't play professional goalie at 5'6", right? You're just not big enough. Well, then I realized in high school I was really, really good at lacrosse goalie. So I played that through college. I also did like the college fishing scene back when it was like first starting.
And where did you attend university?
Northwood.
Oh, you went. Oh, right there in Midland. Oh, very nice. That's great.
I'm born, raised, lived in Midland my entire life. Like
I love it.
I'm never getting out.
I love it.
Yeah.
Midland.
Yeah.
US 10 for life.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, so, goodness. That's cool. Those lacrosse players, they're a different breed. They're so tough. I went to Detroit Mercy, and I was really involved in the athletic department there. I worked with the basketball programs, and I know a ton of lacrosse bros, and they're part of the reason why I grew out the hair. It was just a part of the scene, and everybody started complimenting me on it. But
yeah, dude, the flow.
Yeah, thanks. Flow. Yeah, I got the Matt Robertson fighter knockoff look going on here.
Yeah.
I like it.
Who's your favorite pro? Like, who's your favorite pro from like a fishing perspective, like from on the water, like very talented angler, maybe fits your same style? And then who's your favorite pro from like an off the water perspective, like the way they carry themselves, the way that they are promoting sponsors and working with companies, or just building their own personal brand?
Okay, when it comes to building a personal brand, it's Mike Iaconelli all the way. He's a marketing genius.
Yeah.
He's one heck of an angler. There's nothing he can't do. But when it comes to being on the water, I'd put Seth Feider up there. I like Seth a lot.
Dude, the way that he fishes, and I think this is something that I want to work on, is just fishing my style.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's very good, and maybe not early in his career, but especially over the past 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Ignore all the other stuff. Ignore the other ways guys are catching up, and just fish your style. And he's very good at that.
He's got that look on his face when he's going out there. Perhaps I like to think I harness a little bit of that. Right? It was his crankbait catch and abilities. I got a bunch of DTs in front of me that I just picked up. I remember seeing him win the St. Clair event a few years ago, and he's just. You can't he lets everything come off his shoulder. He's just going to go out there and fish for him and get those bites. It's really, really cool. How about you?
Well, I think Seth definitely has like that calm confidence, right? He has like that
calm, cool, and collective.
Yeah, very, very much so, right? Like nothing bothers him. He's almost unshakable, and he just kind of goes and does his own thing. But I would say the angling ability. Maybe Brandon Paulin, right? Like I like his run and gun mentality.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of is hero or zero.
Yeah.
Which as much as I maybe don't like that, like that's kind of the same mentality I have. Like I'm gonna go out and I'm either gonna smash them or like it'll be a mediocre subpar day.
We're gonna get out. We're gonna hit a home run or strike out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then I guess the angler that I look up to most from an off the water perspective is probably Zona. Right, Zona or Iaconelli. Both of those guys are super respected. They built these phenomenal brands. Zona in particular, probably my biggest idol role model in the fishing industry, just because of the way that he's built everything. Like the man never, ever, 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 ever stops.
He's a real character, all right. Everybody loves him. I can't imagine he gets a ton of sleep. I don't know.
No. That's why he has a box of 5 hours that he just like burns through.
I can picture it. Well, that's great, man. Let's get into some of the nitty gritty behind why I wanted to have you on here tonight. So it is the middle of February in Michigan.
Yep.
The other morning when I woke up, it was -8 outside. We're not bass fishing for a couple of weeks, where we are here in the beautiful Mitten State. But when it actually begins to happen, I try not to go into like a deep state panic mode, like it's finally here, like I'm nervous before the big dance,
Yeah.
And when it comes to off-season planning, I try to do as much as I can, but I try to be as optimistic as possible. Last year, my goal was to fish 40 different lakes and systems. I ended up fishing about 22, and I felt like that was a lot. But there were some things, in the way. But when it comes to off-season planning, what measures and avenues do you take when you're considering the factors and the commitments that go into, where are you going to be fishing in, between April and November?
I think the biggest thing lately is just like the family life, right? Like, how do I balance the work, family, fishing balance? Because as much as I'd like to be on the water all the time, like that's all I think about all the time. Like you have that work-life balance, and then you have the work-family life balance, and then you mix in the fishing part, right? And I do a really good job, or my wife does a really good job of like allowing me to kind of balance my time effectively and get out when I can, right? I wouldn't be able to do it without her, watching the kids and giving me a little bit of freedom to go fish. So that's like the biggest thing is like really having to start plan more. Like if I want to go fishing, I have to actually plan to go fishing.
You can't fly by the seat of your pants anymore. Yeah.
So I already have some trips planned in May. Some people are going to come up, and I'm going to do a couple trips. I'm going to go up to Canada to fish with my buddy Adam Valley. He's phenomenal. He's like one of my really good buddies. But really, I would say April, May, I hit it really, really hard. June is sort of a slow month. July is sort of a slow month for me. And then hopefully August is hit or miss, and then September, October, and basically through the year is really, really, really heavy for me if I can get out. We also just bought a camper, so that's going to play into the amount that I get to go, right? Because we have, I think, 7 trips planned, 7 or 8 camping trips. But
that's so exciting.
Yeah.
Now is it like a fifth wheel, like
yeah, it's a big travel trailer, so 32 foot or 34 foot travel trailer.
Wow, that's quite large.
Yeah, it's huge. We jumped in and it was huge.
Have you ever driven a trailer that long before?
Last year was the first time.
Okay, you got some good practice with it?
Yeah, we went 3 or 4 times, I think, from August to October.
Oh, that's
so
great.
It was fun. I mean, we got to go out, and I like to spend time with family and hang out and go travel places. So that's really cool.
The family man who loves fishing. We all aspire to be like Ben Nowak.
Yeah, it's fun. It's definitely a different balance. But yeah, I don't really have any insane goals though, like numbers of place I want to fish, or like even to the extent of like I normally set goals and say, man, I want to catch a 7-pounder. I want to catch a 30-pound bag. I want to do this. I want to fish these new baits. Like I'm trying to go into this year just super expectation free.
That's the best way to do it, in my opinion.
Yeah, and just go fishing, right? Like, just go out, enjoy my time on the water, fish new bodies of water, fish some maybe old bodies of water, like, and whatever happens.
Let the pieces fall wherever they may, because, when you know what you're doing, everything always seems to come together. And when you have all of your details written out on what you're going to throw and what you're going to expect. And having an idea is totally different from planning exactly what you're going to throw. Because I've pulled up to the lake before and thought, I'm not going to even bring my frogging rod. But I got there and I kind of looked at it, and it ended up being the only thing I ended up throwing all day.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything always happens, and it always happens for a reason in life and on the water, wherever you go.
What about you? Like, what's your season look like? Do you have goals for this year? Like, how are you prepping?
I have some baits I want to play with. Like in specific, I'm one of these. I might be one of these guys now throwing the Mondo baits. I've got a couple of places I want to chuck this just to see what the hype's about. It'd be cool to actually say I got a big one with it. But last year, I looked at the budget and I looked at the logistics and I looked at the time, like where I could go, how much would it cost me, how long would it take me to, figure out a game plan and know what I'm doing from there. Because, if I have 3 days and I spend, an entire day and a half just trying to figure something out, if it doesn't happen soon, I not only burnt my time, I burnt what little money I could have put towards it.
Yeah.
And I look at, now that I'm a career man, trying to go back to graduate school, now I'm working 40 hours a week and I have to plan my PTO and I got to, write out, ideas for where I want to fish. I'm thinking about taking a couple of days off in June and driving up into the Western UP and working my way back. I drive a minivan that's about 20 years old, and I'm in the process of converting it into a camper.
Heck yeah, dude.
I've got a.
Is it like one of the old ones? Is it like one of the box vans? Like,
no, I wish.
Like the creeper vans? Like, I want a Nowak napper. Like, I want a creeper van that I can turn.
Napper, I like that.
Oh yeah, that I can turn into like a creepy.
Yeah. Van down by the river.
Exactly, dude. Exactly.
Yeah, I built a raised bed for it last year, so like I could put my tackle and I got a rod tube underneath, and I put the kayak on top. But I'm gonna put industrial carpet down. I'm gonna mount the TV in there. It's gonna be a really, really good time. I'm very excited, but
that's awesome.
Nowak.
Nick Rose over there. Yeah, dude, the Nowak napper. I got to give credit. Nick LeBrun, FLW. Well, I guess MLF Pro now.
Mm-hmm.
He came up with the Nowak napper because I told him about my plan. We've gone back and forth. I think it'd be sweet though, dude. Just think, you could have like a legit bed. Like,
yeah,
those were. It's not a great vehicle, right? Like from a towing perspective or like a reliability perspective, but I don't care. Like, how cool would it be to be the creepy man in the creepy van pulling up to the lake? Then you just plug in, or you get like a generator and you get that thing going. Oh,
yeah.
I can see myself rolling up to Canada with the Nowak napper and just smashing fish.
And it, it's got character. I've got the big Berkeley sticker on the back and my other fishing details. And I paid $100 for this van like 2 years ago. So it's like a $3 a month car payment. And I'm thinking if it cooks on me somewhere in like Ottawa County in the Western UP, so be it. That's where it's going to die. But
at that point, it stays there.
Quarter million miles on it. I'm just going to keep rocking it. So I'm planning a trip going, 500 miles in that direction and then fishing my way back for several days and taking advantage of all of my holidays. My new employer is quite generous when it comes to days we get off and, fishing the weekends. But also when it comes to fishing the weekends, I don't like fishing lakes when they're kind of crowded.
I hate it, dude. It's the worst.
Yeah.
It drives me nuts.
Yeah. I've fished Lake St. Clair on the weekend and there wasn't a ton of people out there, but then some weekends, you're always like 50 yards from another boat. It seems like we're playing shuffle, out there on Anchor Bay. So that's the other side of the coin. But now that I'm working, I have the budget to feed my tackle addiction and, the drive to, go do places and fish with new equipment and go at it better instead of going at it more often. It's about appreciation and not consumption.
Yeah, for sure. I get that.
But then also, I'm single. I have a little bit more availability than you do. I don't have any children. I'm not married. I still have the availability to, when I get home from work, go out, on my lake or stop somewhere on the way back home. I'm really, really excited for the up and coming year? Is there a style of bait that you're going to try to throw more at least this year?
Great question. I don't know for sure. I want to get a spinnerbait in my hand a little bit. I want to also play with a vibrating jig for smallmouth a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I was really on a lipless crankbait bite a couple of years ago, like a dumb lipless bite. And I want to smash him on it this year.
Dude, if this will be money on my lake in a couple of weeks when it's in the mid to upper 50s out on the stump field. Last year, the first time I went out, my buddy Jesse and we were lighting them up with like 100 fish days.
Yes.
It was nuts. Like how, we're snapping it.
Shallow, right? Like real shallow.
Oh yeah. Like 8 foot and under.
Yeah.
I'm
so excited. I have a video
incredible.
coming out talking all about like ice out bass fishing, and lipless crankbait is like one of my favorites for catching them like early season. No one talks about it either, which is like, yes, guys will talk about it for largemouth, but like for smallmouth, it's phenomenal.
Oh yeah, the Rapala Rip and Wrap. Actually, here's a new color that they had. It's a very thin, very rapid profile. They'll put this in the back of their mouth, like when it's quite cold.
Yes.
When you're just snapping it, really, really aggressively, it just drives them nuts.
Yeah.
When it comes to ice out bass fishing, I remember when I was younger, I would throw a jerk bait and I'd reel it down to depth and I would just let it sit there and pause for 25, 30 seconds. It's borderline painful, but when there's still ice floating out there on the lake and I'm catching bass, it felt like
you
got struck by lightning. It was cool.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a time of year. What matters most is the content of the bottom. Like if it's a mushy bottom or like a harder slate, that's what I end up focusing most of the time on. Because your cast might take 3.5 minutes and you might not have a huge area to work, but if they're there, you've got a good shot at getting one to commit.
Mm-hmm. The biggest thing, and this is something I'll talk about, but the biggest thing is like the color of the bottom composition and finding inflows of water.
Yes.
And all of those, like if you can find, a little bit warmer water that has a darker bottom, and if there's like a recent rain or snow melt and there's an inflow, man, like there's a guaranteed going to be fish there.
Oh man,
I love it. I cannot wait.
Do you ice fish at all?
Maybe once a year, maybe once.
Okay.
I have the stuff. Every year I get really excited. I'm going to go a lot, and then I go like one time, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember why I don't go.
It's a lot of work. There's a lot of stuff you need, and nothing's ever easy when it's like 10 degrees out. Everything wants to fight you. It seems like, and it's a lot of physical work.
I'm a very like active fisherman too, right? Like I like to cover water, I like to move, I like to be on fish, and you can't really do that ice fishing. Like even if you're really, really good, like you have to still move a lot, like or you have to drill a bunch of holes, and it's not my style.
I totally get that, and it might take you 15 minutes out of your fishing day to put everything in your sled, fold it all up, and then get yourself hooked up and on your way to the next spot. And it's a lot of work. I
know you went out.
Yeah, I've ice fished a bit this year, and it's always been something I do to kind of help pass the time in the winter.
Yeah.
I used to go winter steelhead fishing a lot to kind of break up the wintertime blues, and I'm actually going next weekend, hopefully, on the Big Manistee. So that should be fun. I hope that yields at least a hookup. I used to do that a lot, but when I was younger and I'd ice fish out on my lake, I would see these bass come in really, really slowly and really analyze and look at my baits. And there were some days, I couldn't move it fast enough. They were coming through and T-boning a little Lindy darter, a lipless crankbait that I had. But watching them come in and analyze your presentation, I think that's what helped me tremendously when it came to fishing slow, because sometimes they're going to take their time. But, ice fishing, imagine all the people and the people we've both met in the bass fishing world where they don't get to ice fish. They can bass fish today if they wanted to, and I'm so jealous.
Yeah. I told Alex, I said, man, I just want to come down. I would love to live in like Michigan during 9 months out of the year and like Georgia.
Yeah.
Not Florida or Texas, right? Like those places are so hammered with anglers, but like a weird part of Georgia where there's got to be like some mountain lakes or something weird going on. I would love that.
Yeah, the old like Kentucky or Tennessee. I've thought about. I was actually thinking about that earlier today. How many more winters do I want to live? But I enjoy Michigan quite a bit.
Yeah.
Oh goodness gracious, that's most excellent. Yeah, these guys are, fish and watch.
What's your dream destination? Like your dream fishing destination, bass or otherwise?
Lake Biwa in Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be sweet.
That would be really cool. I want to see the really clear water with the big super pressured bass, and yeah. that would be really cool. Or I'd want to go char fishing in Russia.
Okay.
What about you?
I don't know, man. I'm such a bass head. Like, I would love to go to like remote parts of Canada and find some smallmouth, or like Oregon and find some smallmouth, or Washington, Columbia River. I'd love to go to Columbia River and fish with David Swenside from Duo. He's a phenomenal angler out there, and just I think that'd be a really cool trip. So I don't know though, man. I'm very much like a bass guy, and especially smallmouth. Like, I just want to go to like these crazy smallmouth destinations.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like, have you ever fished Green Bay, Wisconsin? I'd love.
I want to go. I'm so weird about it though, right? Like, I'm so weird about. I think this is part of why I liked the Bay for so long, was because it was so unpressured. Like, it was so untapped, and like no one was doing it, right? And like, I like the idea of this exploration and like finding something new and finding something that other guys aren't doing. Whether it's because of they don't know how to do it, they don't know it exists, they don't want to spend the time to look for it. And now that it's becoming more pressured, like I'm such a fan of like this concept of like the unknown and the new. So
there's a sense of pride in going out there and being a pioneer, if you will.
Yeah, if you want to call it that, yeah, sure.
Right. Finding fish on different bodies of water, or maybe you're at least by yourself.
Yeah, I love it.
I think there's a lot to that.
Yeah.
And you recognize that. And I've noticed the Bay, a lot more people are bass fishing the Bay nowadays. That was really good. And how do you think the Bay has changed when it comes to bass fishing last year when the water level was beginning to drop more?
Say that again?
So the water level on Lake Huron and Saginaw Bay has dropped significantly over the past 2 years. How has that impacted your fishing?
It just changes everything every year. The first year that I really started figuring things out, the water was, I would say, maybe a little bit higher than it is now. So we're talking like 2017-ish. And I was fishing offshore grass, and it just changes every year. Yeah. So it's just been a matter of me like figuring things out. I don't know that it's impacted the smallmouth. It's definitely moved them around.
Yeah.
And so you can't go out to the same spots you were hammering them on and expect to hammer them there.
Yeah, we definitely learned that last spring. You and I fished some of the same waterways up there around Huron County, and the river. When that water dropped, it's flowing a lot quicker, and there was hardly any fish up in the river. And then the ones we were catching, in the harbor and around the mouth, we were catching them hand over fist, but they were all like, 15, 16-inch jacks.
I know. And I don't know why that is, right? Like, I don't know if I missed it. I don't know if I can't explain why they wouldn't be still there, right? Like, even though the water's falling, they really don't have another place to go nearby. Like, Bayport was not good. It wasn't like a great year in Bayport. I just don't really understand why that impacted those fish so as bad as it did.
It was really interesting, yeah.
The largemouth fishing was better than it's ever been.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Just crazy.
Yeah, I've largemouth fished around Bay City before. I want to do that. I want to do that again this year. There are a lot of spots that look really good that I haven't poked around yet, and I've fished along the west side of the bay by the Kakawin before, and there's some nice largemouth hanging out there. And I like fishing in the sloppy stuff for largemouth
And
a
there's
lot.
so much really, really, really good stuff, especially like before everyone hits it. Like if you can get out there early, you can catch some really big fish. But then like by middle of May, you can still catch them, but it gets really hard to catch like good ones.
Yeah. I'm just so excited. So I was peeking through your YouTube channel, and I saw you were cranking, and you were using a glass cranking rod. Is there a reason you like to throw the glass? Do you think you could share a little bit on that?
Yeah. So TFL came out with a composite, so it's actually like a 60% graphite, 40% glass, and the blend, what it does is it's a lot softer. So if I'm largemouth fishing, or I'm targeting largemouth, I don't think it matters as much. But like when you're smallmouth fishing and you're reeling that bait pretty fast, it gives that fish a little bit better opportunity to come push your bait and like get your bait better before you set the hook and pull the bait away from them. It also helps like when they surge like next to the boat, because that rod's going to absorb a lot more of that. Or like when they come up to jump, that rod's a lot slower to react, so it maintains that tension, right? A lot better than a rod that's unloading really quickly.
Yeah, I've been wanting to invest in a glass rod for a while. I didn't know that was a composite, but I could see the big differences in between the materials. But I just love how parabolic the bend is in a lot of these glass rods.
I love it, dude. Right? So like having those glass or those composite rods versus a straight graphite rod, you might not feel near as much, right? But like you're getting so good in the technology of these composites that I don't think you lose that much sensitivity, or not to the point, especially with the crankbait, that it really matters, right? Like all you're trying to feel for is like a bite or your bait rattling. Like if I'm fishing a lipless, I don't need to feel like every strand of grass. I just need to know if that bait's activated. If it's not, I may be able to snap that bait free and maintain the fish, like keep the fish pinned when he actually bites the bait. But like, your composites and your glasses are so good now. It's not like the Skeet Reese Yellow Magic rods that were like a limp noodle, right?
Yeah, they were like that thick.
They were enormous.
Yeah,
and
I remember
you go to cast that thing, and it's like, yeah. Those were fun rods. I had one of those. I had a 7-foot medium, and dude, I could take like a half-ounce lipless crankbait, and you go to cast that thing, and like you got to try not to hit yourself in the back of the head when it folds over.
Oh yeah, send it a country mile.
Yeah.
Oh goodness. When you're cranking, what gear ratios do you like to rock?
Typically, it's at that 6-speed.
Okay.
I can always speed myself up, but like to slow myself down is really, really difficult. So 6-speed seems like the right ratio for most everything that I'm doing.
I've got, what do we have right here? This is one of my cranking reels. This is an Abu Garcia Revo X.
That's such a good reel.
This is in the 5-speed, and it's nice when I'm fishing, the deeper Berkeley dredgers or the DTs. And like I want it to take my time, but this is slow. This is when I have time to really work a ledge, really burn a spot, and just see what I can get to go out there. But if I'm trying to be quite active, last year I bumped up to a 6 after listening to a few other podcasts about crankbait speed and how it's easier to fish slower with a faster reel instead of fishing really, really fast with a slower reel like this. So I find it interesting how everybody has, their own little preference, but we all kind of say the same thing. The 6-speed, that works really, really good for me.
The 5's really good. I have a 5 for like deep crankbaits, like when it's down and you want to get that bait down and you need extra torque. But like especially for smallmouth, when you're talking maybe 10 foot, 12 foot or less, like most of that stuff is in that 6-speed range. I might throw a lipless on a 7. If I'm fishing it more like a jig where it's on bottom and I'm working it like a jig. But that 6-speed just seems like the good overall ratio for me, just in general.
Heck yeah, I love that. Oh goodness, when you're throwing the crank, what line are you putting?
It's going to depend on the bait. I'll go all the way up to like 16-pound test,
Okay.
especially if I'm fishing pretty shallow. Like I can really control. And like if I'm fishing less than 10 foot of water, I can get away with like a DT or a Dredger 14.5 in 10 foot of water with 16-pound test. It's still a really small bait, but with that 16-pound, I don't have to worry about like breaking off all the time.
Yeah.
So I like to go up in line size a little bit. I typically don't go any less than 12. Like,
oh, okay.
Maybe the frit side I'll fish on a 12, but that's like bottom line for me.
That's one bait I need to throw. I'm really excited.
So good.
I need to get my hands on them when I can order off of the Pure Fishing site again. But when I'm throwing my deeper cranks, I'm throwing a 10-pound fluorocarbon. But when I'm trying to go a little faster and I'm fishing with my 6-speed crank and reel, it's a 15-pound copolymer.
And you're really good at catching them deep, like 17.5 dredgers and even bigger, right? Like you catch them pretty good on those deep cranks. But like for that, you have to have that 10-pound. Like to get that bait to act the right way, to dive to depth, you have to have that 10-pound test.
Yeah, I do it on a lot of clear lakes up north, and when they come through, they have to be chasing or coming after it from a long ways away because they're hitting it like a freight train. And I'm setting the hook, and I don't know if it's just these lakes. Maybe you could tell me your theory behind it. But there are some places we go when you fight a smallmouth, the one place they're going is straight to the surface. And
exactly.
And you're trying to play keep up, and they get like 3 or 4 feet out of the water, and they're throwing the bait around, and that's what gets me really, really excited.
Well, to me, like when they come straight up, when they hit a bait and they come straight up with it, that tells me that fish is chasing, right? Like that tells me that fish has a head start on that bait and is just continuing to go.
Yeah.
Right. But like if they just eat it and just kind of dog you, like especially with a drop shot, like when you hit them on a drop shot, there are some times where they'll eat it and they'll come straight up.
Yeah.
But most of the time it's like dig, and then eventually they'll come jump. But I think if they eat it and come straight up, it's because they're chasing that bait. And like they're just continuing momentum forward.
That's so cool. I love it.
I love that though, dude. Like they get so high.
Unbelievable. Now I know what Palaniuk meant when he called him smallmouth bottle rocket.
Yeah.
I've got an Instagram post from a few months ago where I set the hook and like I'm reeling kind of fast because he's coming up to the surface. He jumps once and he's right next to my kayak. He jumps again and I catch him with the net.
That's so cool.
It's super duper cool. I'm really excited for this up and coming year. When you're out on the water, do you have a favorite snack to have in the boat?
Always sunflower seeds. Always bigs. Like always big sunflower seeds. Yeah.
The sunflower seed guy. All right. Yeah. Is there a particular flavor like ranch or pickle?
Pickles up there. The Taco Bell flavor sounds disgusting. I didn't trust it at first. The Taco Bell flavor is like a cool ranch Dorito though. It's so good.
I never really got big into the whole seed chewing and spitting.
Yeah, for me it was more so like it just keeps my mind busy, right? Mm-hmm. Like mouth busy, mind busy. Also, like I got into it because I was driving long distances for doing some video photo work. And like at that point is when I started chewing seeds.
Mm-hmm.
I don't chew anything else. But like at that point I was chewing seeds. Then it just translated to me being on the water.
I get that. I like that.
What about you?
I like to have something sugary to kind of keep me going, like Chips Ahoy or Pop-Tarts. It's not.
I got you.
Not super great for you. I've changed my diet quite a bit, and I go to the gym 5 days a week now. So I don't know how much junk food I'll be consuming this year, but there's always like a Mountain Dew and Chips Ahoy or something to kind of keep me plugging along throughout the day. Got to have
it's something
so bad.
It's so bad for me, but like a 5-hour energy midday, That's like dirt's my thing. Like we get out there, it's like
Mhm.
2 o'clock, and we've been sucking all day because that's typically what happens, and then we hit a little window where we feel like we're gods. But 2 o'clock, we suck. Do the little dab up with the 5 hours and kill them.
Picks you right up.
Oh yeah,
You get that moment where you're like, oh yeah, I got a snack or I got an energy
yeah,
drink in the cooler I forgot about.
yeah. Pop-Tarts, though, I gotta say, Pop-Tarts are the weirdest food ever invented.
The
Like
what?
it's such a weird food.
Yeah.
Pop-Tart. I don't like them. I'm going to be straight up. I hate a Pop-Tart.
Okay.
I'm a Pop-Tart hater, but
Oh.
Kylie enjoys them, and it's just a weird food, I never got into Pop-Tarts.
And I don't think about eating them like on my way to work or around my house, but if I'm fishing, a s'mores Pop Tart, maybe
Yeah.
maybe a monster to go with it or something. It
Yep.
keeps me going.
I grab like a bag of beef jerky,
That's always
beef jerky and seeds.
that's always a good bet.
Yeah.
That's always a great bet.
I'm just a hater on Pop-Tarts, I guess. I give Dirt so much crap when he eats them.
Okay. So let's we've been on here for going on an hour. Let's hit a little segment here and then we can maybe sign off for the night. What are some key lessons and finer points in bass fishing that you sharpened in 2021 that you're going to carry coming into this up and coming season?
Don't suck.
Don't
No,
right?
no. 2021 was, I would say, 2020 was the hardest season on the water. Like I had terrible success, really, really bad success.
Really?
Yeah, 2021 was really bad as well. Like I just didn't have, like I don't feel like I'm making good decisions over the past couple of years. Like I'll dodge when I should have dipped, and I'll zig when I should have zagged. Like you just make slightly wrong decisions, which end up maybe costing some fish or whatever. But I think one of the coolest lessons is just how aware fish are of their surroundings. Like when you talk about a smallmouth, like how aware that fish really is of its surrounding. You could throw like a small swim bait in the water, especially looking at it on live scope. Throw that tiny swim bait in clear water, and they know the second that it hits the water. Like they'll be able to see it and come up to it, and they'll be very, very curious. Like that's something that I think I'm going to take into 22 and really adjust my approach, as well as kind of being more aware of boat positioning and the way that it impacts fish. But
that's a lesson I'm going to have to jump in on someday when I buy a boat, because I've never really had to think of it. I've always been the guy in the back of my buddy's boat, and I just cast wherever. But they have a really big responsibility as the captain of the vessel to juxtapose it the best way possible, so that you're casting at them on different angles, and
for sure.
You're not driving out there kind of awkward.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess the final thing would be try to look at areas without considering too much history. Like obviously history is important. Obviously knowing what fish should be doing is important, but the best trips I've ever had, and this stands very true time and time again, that some of the best trips I've ever had are some of my very first trips out to a body of water. And it's because I go there super clean-minded. I don't have any preconceived notions. I just go out and fish the moment, for lack of a better term. And go in with as little dedication to history as I possibly can.
I get you.
What about you?
It's I'll tell you my ideas, but you showed off some great fish last year for apparently sucking really hard.
No, I caught some really big fish, right? Like I had some giants that I caught, but at the same time, like it wasn't consistent. I would go out and have like one really good trip, and then I would go suck. Then I have like a really good trip and it sucked. And so like when I think of a really good season, like when I think of a year that I'm making good decisions, I go out and I just like know the next move to make. And like when I make a move, it works. And when I make an adjustment, it's the right adjustment. it seemed like last year I would go and catch them really good. Then the next trip I'd go and I'd make like a bad adjustment or a bad move or fish too much history, and it just bit me like over and over and over again. So it was a great season. Caught a lot of really, really big fish. It had a lot of cool opportunities. But like from the decision making perspective, it wasn't the cleanest year.
It wears down on one of the biggest aspects in bass fishing, and that's mental toughness. Yeah. And if you're out there and you're second guessing yourself, you have everything else already working against you. Don't let your psyche do that.
Exactly.
We've all been there, and I get that. To this day I think, what happens if we went and we fished the middle channel instead of going over that way? Like you just got to go for it, and you can't be afraid to swing the bat or play the game. But I'd have to say, from 21 going into 2022, I'm going to know better, like when I want to fish fast and try to cover water, like especially with cranking. But probably the biggest thing, fishing the transition between summer into fall, I've learned that I need to be more dedicated to a plan, just because you end up spending so much more time running around looking for different things. Like if it's September and October and I'm going out, I'm going to try to fish either deep or shallow. Like if I'm going to try to fit both of those in, I'm probably not going to do as well if I just committed to one of them. That's
such good advice.
And if we go out deep, I might be chucking baits for a while, fishing for quality bites. But if I'm staying shallow, like 5 feet of water and under, and just running the entire shoreline, it can be a parade day. But if you spend, 2 hours on one shoreline and nothing happens, and then you go out to the ledge and you try to keep looking for them, you're spending so much time, when if you just stayed true to your course, doing what you were doing, that's where it pays off. You just got to be confident in what you're doing, and that's probably the biggest thing that bit me last year.
That's a great play on that decision-making thing that I said, right? Like, because when I think back on my season, a lot of times I'm very like narrow hindsight, right? Like hindsight's 2020. I think of this trip I took with Brennan from Do It Molds. We went out to Bayport, and I knew that there should be a class of fish shallow, like just the water temperature, the wind, like everything told me there should be a class of fish shallow. Well, I went out there and I spent probably 2 hours shallow, and like what I considered pretty effectively fishing shallow. Mm-hmm. Well, they're not here. We ran 11 miles to a spot that I was fishing deep, and got out there and spent maybe an hour and a half. And I'm like, man, they're not out here. Ran 11 miles back.
Then you start thinking like, oh, I gotta pull the rabbit out of the hat.
Yeah, and then we ran 11 miles back to fish shallow again, and then ran all over the place. When if I would have stayed shallow, like if I would have stayed around the Bayport area and like really putting the time, maybe not casting, but looking around, whether it's on trolling motor on the big motor, or if you're in a kayak, like paddling around looking, put in the time and say, hey, I'm going to fish shallow today. I'm going to figure the shallow bite out instead of wasting time fishing deep for an hour and a half, and then an hour and a half shallow, and then deep, and then shallow. And yeah, that's a great piece of advice now.
It was probably the biggest thing like I learned, because there's that point in the transition where you're fishing later than it really is. So you think, the fish are going to be really predictable, like they're going to be on this ledge, but that water is still warm. The oxygen's breaking down. The bait is everywhere. A lot can be happening, and that's when it starts picking up to be better and better. The shallower you begin to fish. But I've learned definitely like sticking true to one thing during the transition is really big, but especially during the fall.
Yes. Yeah, that's great.
Oh man, I'm really excited. I've got all these baits in front of me. I'm thinking about the rods I'm ordering within the next couple of weeks here. Now that I've got a big boy job, I can afford, new stuff while I still can,
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah, when you're thinking about buying fishing stuff, you deserve it. Don't even second guess it. Just go for it. You deserve it. Treat yourself.
I had some stuff in my tackle warehouse cart the other day. And I'm like, do I really? I second guess myself. I'm like, do I really need these crankbait blades, like blades for the treble hooks? Do I really need these jerkbait weights? Do I really need X, Y, Z? And I'm like, no. I put it away. I closed the window, never to be seen again. Now I'm like, damn, I should have bought those.
Yeah, life is short. Buy the fishing tackle.
Yeah. Tell my wife that one.
I love it, man. I absolutely love it. So, do you have any other questions for me, or anything you would like to mention? You maybe plug your channel.
Yeah, dude. Last question for you. What is your biggest plan for 22? Like, what is your goal? What is your biggest plan? Like, what do you want to accomplish this year? Maybe that you haven't, or has been haunting you, or
I want to catch a fish with a spy bait. So that's something kind of small, and I've been saying that for a couple of years. It just hasn't happened yet. But I want to stay confident, going at it, because there are days, I'll admit it, where I wake up and maybe I've been up north for a few days, and on the last day I got to drive home. I lift my head up off of my pillow and I say, I don't know if I'm going to fish. I think I'm just going to, drive home. And I end up telling myself, go to the lake, and I end up catching a fish. I want to be consistently confident.
That's great.
How about you?
I think that's part of it too. Like, I want to trust my gut a little bit more, and be like, utilize my time on the water effectively. There were a lot of days where I would get out there and spend maybe half a day. I had a full day to be able to be out there, and I would spend like half a day out there, and I'd be like, man, I'm just not feeling it today. Like, things just aren't seeming to go right, or I'm not making the right decisions. Like, I'm just going to pull the plug and we're just going to head home. Yeah.
And then, you get in your head and you're thinking like, why am I even out here right now?
Or I made the wrong decision, or like, I don't know what these fish are doing, but like telling myself that I don't know what they're doing is like the biggest mistake. So I want to maintain like confidence and trusting my gut, and trusting that I do know what's going on, and like better self-talk is, I think, my biggest thing for this season.
What helped me a lot, like back in September and October, I was self-employed. I had a lawn care business, so I could cut grass whenever I wanted and fish whenever I wanted. It was real nice. But I'd tell myself, like, if you're free, you have to go out bass fishing, because on days like today, when it's 7 or 8 degrees out, you're gonna wish you did.
Yeah, dude.
And that's what got me through it. And just for a while there, my friends were messaging me like, man, your page has been nothing but a largemouth parade lately. And I'm like, I got to do this as much as I can.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. That's awesome. I also hope you dedicate some time and like really focus on growing the YouTube scene.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can do it. I think you can make a really, really cool platform. You and I have talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, you were actually the one who got me thinking about opening up this avenue of, the chat dialogue, because I listen to Straycast. I listen to the guys from the Serious Angler podcast, and some guys are good at it. And when you reached out to me, I was thinking, okay, this guy knows something or sees something in me that I've always kind of been curious about. And like you said 2 weeks ago, everybody sucks until they don't. Like a couple of years ago, I did 2 videos like this, one with Destin DeMarion and one with Patrick Walters. And they were really cool. And that was great. It just felt a little different. It felt a little awkward, but knowing that you reached out to me and you were giving me, words of wisdom and advice and courage to kind of play around with this, because you thought I'd be a real good fit for it.
I see the proper bassin man in you. And I think you could be like, you have it, man. You have it. And I told you that. I
love hearing that. You're not the first person who's told me that, but I would love to fit in with those guys. They all seem a little quirky, a little grungy. I love it.
Heck yeah.
They were throwing that Fritz side like 2 weeks ago in Indiana somewhere, and I'm thinking, how are you doing that?
Yeah, current is the ultimate equalizer.
I gotta find out how to do that. And what to do that. It got me fired up. Our conversations, they always get me fired up. Thanks for all of the inspiration and thanks for the help along the way. You've always been you've always been a good friend in my back pocket. I could send fish pictures to, or
Yeah.
get some advice from to help me make decisions and think a little bit more proactively about it.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate, the friendship as well. It goes both ways. So I appreciate all the friendship and, conversation and camaraderie, because there's a gap of it sometimes, or it feels that way in the fishing industry. So I appreciate it.
Oh yeah. I'm going to try to do something with my YouTube channel at least once a week. I've got, I've been keeping up on it pretty good so far. So we're just going to keep the ball rolling, man.
Awesome, dude.
If those watching would like to follow you and keep up with your endeavors, where can they find you at?
I have actually 2 YouTube channels. I have my Benjamin Nowak fishing account, which is just like basically fishing tips, information on catching fish. And then I have the bait making channel, which is just dedicated to like making fishing lures. So that channel is getting up and rolling. We're starting to grow. There's a lot of momentum going on there.
You've got 1,000 subs already on there, don't you?
Yeah, crushing it, man.
That
channel. That page is doing so good. I just need to dedicate a little bit more effort, like split the dedication and like really blow that thing up, because it could be so cool. Like the audience is great. Everyone's super invested. I just need to figure out how to bear that nasty outside and like go out and make more content for it. So
that's a really good,
that's it, man.
Going on there, man.
I appreciate you having me on, and
thanks for coming
on Instagram and YouTube, and we'll chat. So if anyone wants to chat on Instagram, YouTube, whatever, hit me up. I'm pretty free. So
sounds great. Well, thanks again, Ben, for volunteering your time and showing off the newborn. Congratulations again.
Yeah, no problem, dude. Thank you for having me.
Well, to everybody tuning in, we both appreciate it greatly. Until next time, I'm Dominic. This is my guest, Ben. We hope you enjoyed it. You be sure to have a great one and take it easy.
See you guys.